Hello friends, welcome to the channel of LevelUp IAS, and today in our series where we are regularly discussing about social, political and legal issues, we are going to discuss of this very contemporary and emerging issue on our social forum, that is to criminalize the marital rape. The context of it is that Supreme Court has recently agreed to hear this petition by a 3-judge bench whether to criminalize marital rape or whether to let it be in the exempted format in the present circumstances. Now, for those of you who may understand the marital rape, or even for those who may not be able to figure it out from the words, you may be understanding the term rape. If you need to look the legal provisions for the rape, let's see this particular section of IPC, that is section 375. So this section 375 of the IPC talks about the offense of rape as to what constitute an offense of rape, and section 376, it prescribes the punishment for the offense of rape. Right, if you see the gist of this particular section, it talks about any sexual intercourse with a woman. Now you should note that rape in India is not a gender neutral law. It's only protecting women, not protecting intercourse with a men without their consent or not. So fact of the matter is that as per the present legal situation in India, rape is an offense which can be only committed against a woman. Even if there is any similar situation committed against a man, it is not a punishable offense as of now. Right? So what this section 375 of the IPC says, that if there is any sexual intercourse resulting into penetration either by the genitals or by any object, but the important thing to note here is against the will of the woman or without her consent. So if these criteria are met, this will be considered as a offense of rape. Now even if sometimes woman gives the consent, that consent is obtained by showing the force, putting her life at the threat, or threatening the life of their husband, father or anyone, or intoxicating her. So even if the consent of the women is obtained in these kinds of situations, that is not a valid consent, and any intercourse done after obtaining consent in these situations like threatening the woman, intoxicating her, will still be counted as the offense of rape, and the punishment for which is given under section 376. But there is a minute, may not be minute, but there is a particular loophole in this act, which is for what now this marital rape debate is going on. So as of now, you know that this is the provision of the rape, but there is an exception to this rule which is itself given in section 375. This rule says that even though a sexual intercourse is committed against a woman without her will, or against her will, or without her consent, even if such a situation, intercourse happens with a woman by any person who is her husband, and the woman is not below 15 years of age. Now this 15, the limit of this 15 years is now practically 18, raised by the Supreme Court in 2017. So the law is, even if a sexual intercourse against the will of the woman without her consent happens by such a person who is her husband, and the woman is above 18 years of age, not below 18 years of age, it will not be considered as a rape and the person will go unpunished. In all ordinary situation, if similar thing happen by any person who is not her husband, it will be counted as a rape. But here it is not counted. It is an exception. Now the debates and discussion in our country is going on to undo with this exception and to criminalize the offense of marital rape also, the manner any ordinary rape situation is penalized. So Supreme Court has now agreed to hear this issue of marital rape. Earlier there has been certain cases, like very recently there was a case decided by Karnataka High Court, wherein the High Court of Karnataka, it did not decriminalize, or rather criminalize the offense of marital rape, but yes, it allowed a prosecution of such a man who had committed offense similar to that of marital rape against her wife. So that was one incident. Before that, last year, there was a verdict of the Delhi High Court by a two-judge bench of the Delhi High Court, wherein this was a split verdict, however. So Justice Rajiv and Justice Harishankar, so they were two judges and they were not conquering an opinion. There was divergence of opinion. So one of the judges was in the favor that yes, marital rape can be criminalized. Others overruled that, so it cannot be criminalized. There was no concluding judgment of the Delhi High Court. So let's consider about the observation made by Justice Rajiv, that why should marital rape, if it can be, it should be criminalized. So there are 2-3 legal issues and constitutional issues. So what he observed is, firstly, these kinds of incidents is against the human dignity, and already if every citizen of India and every person in India has got a right to life and right to live with dignity under Article 21. So these kinds of physical, sexual and mental torture and cruelty which is inflicted upon a woman while forcing her to establish the sexual intercourse even in a matrimonial relationship is violative of Article 21. Secondly, he also observed that establishing such a relationship without the consent of the woman is again the violative of Article 19(1)(a), which gives every citizen of India a fundamental right of free speech and expression. Now also, he noted that if the similar offense happened with any other woman by any other man who is not the husband, that is counted as a rape. Then why we are creating another class of women who has married? And he found that this classification is unreasonable and unfair, and hence it is also violative of Article 14. So these are several constitutional and legal questions which again Supreme Court will sit and decide while it take a call whether to criminalize the marital rape or not. Right? Let's move on and see certain facts which has been highlighted and see the state of society. You should note that the Indian Penal Code, the section 375 which you talked about, is an act which was made during 1860 at the and it was pioneered by Lord Macaulay. He was the chairman of First Law Commission of India. So this particular section has been introduced in 1860, and now the society is at, there is a gap of around 160 more than 160 years. So still the law has not changed, and what it has caused is in front of you. So you will find that there is a survey which is rolled out by National Family Health Survey, and that says around 82% of the women during the age group of 18 to 49 has faced some or other kinds of sexual abuse by their husband. 13.7% have faced similar kinds of abuses by their former husband. 1.6% face the similar offenses by their current boyfriends or ex-boyfriends, or 1.4% of the women faces these kinds of sexual abuses by their immediate family members. Now this shows a very grim situation. The survey also highlights that around 1/3 of the women is facing these kinds of sexual violences leading to sexual harassment. Now it should also be noted that these are the facts still which is very underreported in the present structure, social structure of India, where the institution of marriage is considered so sacrosanct. It is very tough for a woman to come out and report those kinds of circumstances. So even the situation is grim. Think about it, that what if the more and more cases starts to get reported, the numbers will still rise. This will be a big issue that needed to be dealt, not only revamping the laws. So bringing out those incidences which are still hidden and that goes underreported is a big challenge. Now moving ahead, we have already seen that the legal position, present legal law provisions which deals the issue. Now this particular law, which is a colonial law, it is trying to implicate, or it is just trying to justify a particular doctrine of coverture, which however is not constitutionally recognized in India, but it is got a basis, or it has got its origin in the England or the Europe, that believes that women has no different identity apart from her husband in a matrimonial relationship. So both are treated as one legal person. Now this has no legal basis in the present constitutional scheme and structure in India. This doctrine was again in the question when Supreme Court was hearing the issue of decriminalizing adultery in the famous Joseph Sign case. And it was of the opinion that these kinds of doctrine may not be permitted in our present constitutional jurisprudence. It simply violates the basic philosophy of our constitution of human dignity and Article 21. So this law, which itself says that sexual intercourse in a matrimonial relationship, so women has no separate choice, is nothing but trying to reinforce the similar biblical morality which is even defunct in the present society of the Europe. You will see the laws which is presently changing, and it has been changing throughout the civilized nations around the world. You can say so-called civilized nations. So you will find that in England earlier the same doctrine was there in place. So there was exception to matrimonial rapes, but now from 1991 onwards, a marital rape is a made up offense in England. In US, in almost all 50 states, some or the other laws has forbidden matrimonial rapes, and it has made it a punishable offense. In New Zealand, the same matrimonial exceptions were abolished in 1985. You will find in South Africa since 1993 it is a punishable offense. In Canada, it is also a punishable offense. However, there are certain jurisdictions in the country, including India, where the matrimonial exceptions are still prevalent, and sexual intercourse during a marriage is not punishable, even if it is without the consent, is not punishable offense. Now, there have been certain efforts to discuss or deliberate over this issue. There has been certain committees which has given its recommendation, be it the Law Commission of India or be it the important committee of Justice J. Swarma Committee, which was instituted to give the suggestions on the reforms in the criminal justice system after the infamous Nirbhaya case. So let's have a look at what are these committees' recommendations. Law Commission of India in its 172nd report has refused to give a recommendation to criminalize the matrimonial rape, considering it that it will be an unnecessary and excessive intervention in the matrimonial relationship. There is a parliamentary committee also, when it's in its 167th report, it is also of the opinion that marital rapes, matrimonial relationship may get worse if similar legislations criminalizing such an offense or such an act is enacted. However, you should note that this Justice Verma committee has given a clear recommendation to criminalize the marital rape, but this recommendation has not been fully incorporated. Also, you will see that United Nations organization has urged all of its members to denounce any such practices and criminalize the marital rape by revamping their domestic laws. So there are both kinds of opinion. However, finally the issue is hopeful that will be settled by the Supreme Court if they are able to come out with the conclusion. This is why there is a 3-judge bench, at least that there will be a clear-cut opinion. There will be no division of opinion like the issue what happened in the Delhi High Court. So one of the judges wanted to criminalize, other did not. So now even if the judges will not want, they will have a majority-based opinion, 2:1. So this is why 3-judge bench of the Supreme Court is scheduled to hear, right? But if we are talking about the issue of marital rape and we are talking about that such kinds of sexual intercourse without the consent against the will of the women in the matrimonial relations are not amounting to rape, so is there not any other legal safeguard, or are they completely vulnerable, completely prone to the abuses? Yes, there are no legal provision which consider it as a rape, but there are certain elements of protection, however not a sustainable and holistic provisions. So two provisions is important to be noted. One is section 498A of the IPC. This is one provision of the IPC which protects cruelty against the women, meant both mental and physical cruelty. So if similar kinds of forced sexual intercourse is happening with a woman, they can take help of this 498A, but this has two drawbacks. Firstly, there ought to be certain difference between an offense of rape and cruelty. Rape is a more heinous and serious nature crime, may have the severe repercussions. Cruelty may have different repercussion. Both cannot be dealt with the same law. Secondly, the punishments what are given under 498A is not as grave as compared to that of an offense of rape. So this law 498A may fall short in protecting the victims of marital rape. Secondly, there is a particular Act of Prevention of Women, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005 that will protect women from various kinds of abuses, including sexual abuses, and children also from their husband and their families. But again, this is a very civil nature law. This is not giving a serious punishment, and it is mainly to give immediate orders for the protection. So magistrate can pass protection order, residence order, maintenance order, different kinds of orders, but it is again not tackling the issue as substantively as it should have been. However, the matter of the fact is, now Supreme Court is scheduled to hear the issue, and they will come up with a more concrete guidelines. But there are certain other elements that needed to be seen and needed to be taken care before any such legislative intervention is made out. You should also note that very recently we were talking about 498A. So this is again one of the laws which is made for the protection of the women, but it is also criticized to be a law which is highly misused by the women. So what if marital rape is criminalized and tomorrow there is a possible misuse, that it may be used not as a tool of protection but rather as a tool of doing the exploitation of the male counterparts? This one issue needed to be taken care of. Secondly, these kinds of sexual intercourses are bound to happen during the closure of the four walls. It is very tough to prove that whether there was a consent or not. And matrimony is a kind of relationship where you have the continuing consent. So at what point of time and under what circumstances this consent and the choice will be very tough to prove, and burden of proof, if it is kept upon the men, they will find a hard time to defend themselves even if they are not guilty. Thirdly, the main issue what we are forgetting here to address is that it is, firstly it is the law, but secondly, even if the law is made, it is criminalized. What about those cases which are underreported? That will still be underreported, even if there is a law or not. So that issue also needs to be taken care by the government. And fourthly, should it be made a gender neutral law? Because rape itself is not a gender neutral law, as we have previously discussed. Now our society is also considering to grant recognition to the same-sex marriage. So from tomorrow, if you see that similar same-sex marriage is getting registered and it's allowed in the society, and in that relationship any sexual intercourse happen against the choice of one of the partners, so will it be counted as a marital rape, and who is going to get punished if it is not a gender neutral law then? So these are certain issues which will be needed to be dealt with very care and cautions. I hope that you have got a basic idea about the marital rape. We will again further discuss about this issue once Supreme Court comes up with a judgment. We will have a very concrete and a very relevant point to discuss. As of now, these are certain basic idea I thought you should have about the issue. Now I was also getting certain requests to upload the PDFs of the whatever videos we are making on our channel. So you can download that from the LevelUp channel, or you can download from my Telegram channel. You can join this Constitution and You, or alternatively you can scan this QR and join that channel. If you want to practice any questions, if you are preparing on self-study and you want to practice, want to write any questions on these issues, on this topic what we are discussing, So you can write and send it to me over this Telegram channel. We will be very happy. I will be very happy to give you certain feedbacks. Until then, stay tuned for these informative videos. We are continuously in our effort that we will be making these videos covering the current issues, and will be bringing very relevant content with you. Thank you. Stay tuned.